The centre has extended a special subsidy of Rs 3,500 per ton on diammonium phosphate, which was to end on December 31 for a further 1-year period from January 1, 2025. The decision cleared by the Union Cabinet Wednesday is aimed at containing any surge in farmgate prices of India's second most consumed fertilizer. That pressure is more given the rupee's recent slide against the US dollar. The Modi government has informally frozen the maximum retail prices of all non-urea fertilizers. This is despite them being decontrolled on paper, unlike urea whose MRP has been statutorily fixed at rupees 266.50 per 45 kg bag since November 2012. Textbooks in Bangladesh will now state the Ziaur Rahman note. Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman declared the country's independence in 1971, the Daily Star reported on Wednesday. The new textbooks have also removed Mujib's title of Father of the Nation. The new textbooks from the academic year 2025 will state that on March 26, 1971, Ziaur Rahman declared the independence of Bangladesh, and on March 27 he made another declaration of independence on behalf of Bangabandhu. Professor A.K.M. Raizul Hassan, chairman of the National Curriculum and Textbook Board, told the Daily Star. Ziaur was the founder of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and husband of current BNP chief Khalida Zia. Mujib, father of recently deposed Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, led the Bangladesh liberation struggle. This is not first time that the Bangladesh textbook have removed the title of Bangabandhu. It would seem that the sporting scripts of 2024 were penned by a suspense writer in a sadistic streak. At virtually every major sporting event in the year just gone by, false clues were followed by unexpected twists and turns. Nothing quite happened as it was supposed to be, and punters lost money, pundits their faces, and fans their fingernails. It was also not easy following sport in 2024. It was a leap year where the heart kept leaping up into the mouth. Joy and heartbreak, and two emotions that define sport, were like sly muggers in dark alleys trained to catch their victims off guard. What could have prepared India for that dreadful morning on August 13 during the Paris Olympics, just the night before Vinesh Fogart had taken out at a goat wrestler, and what remained was the formality of writing the last page of her fairy tale. And then the weighing scale showed that she was 100 grams overweight. She was mercilessly pushed out of the competition and thrown into a dark pit of depression. A shell-shocked India did not know how to react. At the same Olympics, the world thought Neeraj Chopra's competition would be javelin throwers from Europe. Little did they know that a Jat boy from Mia Channu, a village in Pakistan's Punjab, would hurl the javelin with the nonchalance of a father lobbing a ball to his child at a park and come up with a 90-plus throw to win gold. Like the agony, the ecstasy too arrived unannounced. At the T20 World Cup final, all seemed lost for India. That old ICC event jinx seemed to have struck again. South Africa, meanwhile, had all but shed their choker tag, but Hardik Pandya bowled his redemption over and Suryakumar Yadav took a catch that will always be his calling card. Unimaginable, unpredictable, unbelievable. Commentators had run out of the words. 2024 was also said to be about super athletes calling it a day, but those grand farewells seem to have been postponed. The aging legends Novak Djokovic, MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, none of them spoke about retirement, fully or partly. Djokovic, got an Olympic medal. Kohli and Rohit lifted the ICC trophy, and Dhoni hit a few signature slog over sixes. They all proved the sporting soothsayers wrong, being fully aware of the risk that comes with making sporting predictions and getting them horribly wrong, but remaining true of the tradition of dispensing year-ending beginning prophecies. Here, how sport and sporting careers are likely to unfold in 2025. Compared to the eventful last 12 months, 2025 will be a period of relative sporting lull. After the leap, this is a landing year. 2024 had the Olympics, Euro Football, World Championship, Chess, and the T20 World Cup. The frugal tournament list for the next 12 months can't match last year's magnitude or scale. Cricket. Of course, in February there is Cricket's Champions Trophy, a tournament that was to be fully hosted by Pakistan, but because of India's refusal to cross the border, will now have some games in Dubai. Pakistan is offended by the change, and in case the final two moves to Dubai. The understanding is in case India reach the title clash, it will at least popular format will lose more fans. The big hope for the long neglected 50 over ICC tourney to hit the headlines could lie with happenings beyond the action on the field. If India's two aging greats Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, both in their late 30s and also on their last legs, don't hang up their boots after the Australia tour and are out of the World Test Championship, the Champions Trophy would where they will be expected to say their last goodbyes. Retired from T20, struggling in Test and ODI World Cup in 2027, Virat and Rohit have been running out of the reasons to keep turning up for India games and delay the transition. These likely departures this year will be followed by a succession drama. Who will be India's test captain? The BCCI, the selectors, the coach, and the Indian cricket's other influential voices. Their say is such important matches never defined or made known to the world will take this all important call. Since these test captaincy aspirants will be in leading roles of the franchise teams, the IPL will be watched with interest. But does the handling of your team's resources in T20 provide any clue about sources in T20 cricket provide any clue about your test leadership credentials in India? It does. If Gautam Gambhir got the job of Indian coach within days of him taking KKR of the IPL title, the criterion could not be too different when it comes to picking a captain. Rishabh Pant, Shubman Gill and KL Rahul would not do their test captaincy chances any harm by winning the IPL, though Bumrah could also be a contention following his showing as a captain in the Perth Test in November. Indian hockey will also be watching its own franchise format tournament, the Hockey India League, for international gains, although there have been two short-lived attempts earlier. 2025 encourages us to say that this is an idea whose time has now come. The Paris Olympics showed that Indian hockey has finally hit consistency. A second successive bronze at the Summer Games means India has the resources and the system to produce quality players. The spine of the team is young, and on the fringe are several 20-somethings with promise. The HIL will bring foreign coaches, international stars and new ideas. There would be have money and also fame. Indian hockey has never had it so good since its run of gold medals. The first thing to understand about velvet ants is that they are not in fact ants. They are wasps, named in part of their fluffy exteriors. One species of velvet ant found across the tropical savanna and dry shrub desert in Brazil is known for its distinct black and white markings. A team of scientists by the Vinicius Lopez, an entomologist at the Federal University of Brazil, recently found that the black parts of the female velvet ants were actually ultra black, so made that they absorb nearly all visible light. The discovery published in the Journal of Nanotechnology last month makes this species the first known insect among Hymenoptera, the group of animals comprising bees, wasps and ants, to display such a striking shade. Gurugram, London Bridge. My most enduring memory of 2024 is likely to be of a villager from Gurugram a previously imprisoned man of the Gujar caste who is a recent land sale millionaire standing under the shadows of London Bridge. In the photo that I have, he is wearing a pair of fashionably ripped jeans, hands folded across his chest in a gesture of confidence that conceals an extraordinary journey from being a village milkman at the bottom of the rural caste hierarchy to global traveler. I have known him over the past 10 years of fieldwork in southern Haryana, where along with clods of earth thrown up by construction machinery, his fortunes have also turned. As we begin 2025, this photo of a Gurugram villager standing under the iconic tourist spot, just one link in a global chain he intends to complete, is a sign of a new world of being, buying and believing, and just over a quarter of century of economic and cultural change has produced. It is a world of aspiration significantly made through policy actions of the recently departed Manmohan Singh and successfully redefined for its own purposes by the BJP and its alliance partners. And just as importantly, it is also a chronicle of the making of an Indian type that has no precedence. We had better understand to the worldview of a man under the bridge in ripped jeans if we were to come grips with that what the time portend. But for his demeanor is that of someone who has actually upended ways of thinking about modern life itself. My 25-year-old visitor began life as a hand-to-mouth dairy farmer, progressing to becoming a middleman for major real estate companies, but was trusted by villagers to deal him outsiders in the sale of their land. His biography forms an integral part of the story of the making of a new Indian type. He is a part of a very significant section of the Indian population whose lives make it impossible to think through the binaries of modern and pre-modern. Why should we bother with the seemingly arcane distinctions? Because it lies at the heart of the India that has come to life over the past quarter century and defines a range of cultural, social and political outcomes in the Republic. We live in an age where the world has not become an disenchanted place, to invoke a phrase from famous to the German sociologist Max Weber, though a decline of belief in magic and religion. Rather, as my Gurugram visitor's life story tells us, modern life has itself become magical and hence re-enchanted in ways that the Weber may have also not predicted. The crux of the re-enchantment lies, unlike the Weberian understanding of modernity, in what the anthropologist Arjun Appadurai correctly identified as the captaincy of aspire. Strategies of aspirations now produce worldviews that are impossible to comprehend through unilinear ways of understanding the new formation of Indian culture. We do not move from more or less magic, rather than new culture of aspirations now spread across the strata of society, rather than limited of a privileged minority, has given rise to an imagination that ascribes success to the power of magic and the divine. In a society with such great barriers to economic and social mobility, a magical modernity is not such a strange thing. Higher gas costs will lead to faster consolidation in the city gas distribution sector. The sector is facing headwinds from a sharp cut in the allocation of gas supplied under the administered price mechanism for the priority sectors, domestic piped natural gas and compressed natural gas. The APM gas allocation of these segments has reduced from 72% in the second quarter of the financial year to 44% effective from November 16. This will compel players to rely on higher cost alternate gas sources such as high pressure, high temperature gas or imported regasified liquefied natural gas, which cost 1.5 and 2 times respectively to the APM gas cost. The higher share of HPHT and RING will likely increase the gas cost of players in the priority segment by around rupees 5 per standard cubic meter to or rupees 7 per kg, considering the DPNG and CNG segments account for the 2/3 of the sector's volumes. This will significantly impact the overall profitability of players with imported contracted RLNG, new well gas and part of the HPHT gas being linked to the crude prices. The current crude prices of rupees 70 to 75 per barrel will only marginally offset the impact of lower APM allocation. meltdown. Gautam Gambhir ticked off his team, but there is more to this story than a coaching cracking the whip after defeat. India's head coach Gautam Gambhir was understandably angered by his team's Melbourne meltdown and gave the players a mouthful. He warned them of precautions. If they don't perform, he would not hesitate from taking extreme measures irrespective of reputation or other indication of promise. Even the calmest are not immune to a flare of the temper in stormy times. The legendary Manchester United coach Alex Ferguson once accidentally kicked a boot in the direction of his team star David Beckham. Liverpool's ex-manager Gerard Hoare gave a dressing down to so severe that he was taken to hospital with a suspected heart attack. But there is more to a story. There is more to the story of a coach cracking the whip after a loss. The Indian team is wading through a classic transitional tumult. The old hands Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma and Ravindra Jadeja are fading. R. Ashwin has retired in the middle of the series. Mohammad Shami is injured riddled. The new wave of Nitish Kumar Reddy, Dhruv Jurel and Harshit Rana is still to settle in. Some are busy harboring captaincy ambitions and others exude a sense of exaggerated self-importance. Managing this team could be the hardest task yet in Gambhir's cricketing career, though then forging a successful career in the most competitive era of Indian batsmen. Gambhir's responsibilities are many. The immediate focus would be on winning the Sydney Test and retaining the BJT. But given that planning behind the scenes will take time to reflect in results, perhaps his successor would reap the benefits of his labor. He has to phase out some players, be both sympathetic and assertive. He kinds to be on the same wavelength and frequency as his support staff, the selectors, the board and his own players. It is a tightrope, but one that he has to balance on. Whether and how he does so will help script a fascinating chapter in the history of Indian cricket as well as his own record. Manmohan Singh remained above the harshness of politics and the cold power games around him. A truly suitable eulogy to Dr. Manmohan Singh is beyond my competence. The tribute can hardly do justice to the greatness of an extraordinary man whose life was marked by decency, integrity, humility and magnanimity. As the architect of India's economic reforms, he set the trajectory of the nation's rise as an Asian economic power that lifted millions of Indians above abject poverty. These contributions still will remain a lasting testament in his vision and wisdom. Singh's leadership role on the global high table in shaping the contours of the future world order amidst the transformational changes of our times makes the nation proud. Those who derided him for being weak need only recall his steely resolve in clinching the India-US civil nuclear deal that ended India's nuclear apartheid and established the nation's credentials as a responsible nuclear power. The forging of what has now blossomed into an all-encompassing special strategic and global partnership with Japan, seen as establishing an arc of peace and prosperity in Asia, is a tribute to his statesmanship and incisive understanding of the realities of geopolitics. After appointing me as his special envoy to Japan for facilitating the historic visit to India of their Imperial Majesties, the then Emperor and Empress of Japan, he told me that this was one of the most important state visits to our country and the Indo-Japan relationship was the defining bilateral partnership of the 21st century. Subsequent events have vindicated his vision. The record of his spectacular achievements as Prime Minister will not be complete without reference to his path-breaking initiative and right-based pieces of legislation such as Manrega, RTE, RTI and the Farmers Loans Waiver. That his tenure will also be remembered for the foundational framework of Aadhaar and the largest ever budgetary allocations for education and healthcare. His patience and forbearance in the face of grave provocation by allies and opponents secured the longevity of the government and ensured the political stability necessary for implementing the nation's ambitious development agenda. He so inscripted the progressive future of Indian nation and seized upon the idea of a developed India whose time had come. The unending accolades received by Singh, including from his vocal critics, affirm His towering stature amongst the world's foremost leaders. This is because of his innate humanity, selflessness, unimpeachable personal integrity, and genuine concern for the welfare of all. The generosity of his heart made no exception. He could instinctively relate to the pain of others. None who came to him for assistance or solace in moments of despair left them without being confronted. He was a healing touch, and one that was both humbling and ennobling. He remained above the harness of politics and cold power games orchestrated around him. In formal conversations, he would often mention the transience of power, and perhaps there carried the authority of his high office with the lightness of touch. At a difficult time during the UPA too, when some of his ministerial colleagues unfairly derided him, he refused to crack the whip, saying that he did not wish to discipline them as a headmaster. His rare reprimands to his ministers were softly delivered. Those who see this is a weakness must know that his life and politics were a reflection of the spirituality anchored in compassion and an abiding faith in the goodness of people. Even as he navigated the treacherous pathways of politics, Singh did not allow his moral clarity to be diminished. He was deeply saddened by the allegations of corruption during the UPA too, and agonized over his name being dragged in the mud. In moments of intense anxiety and extreme despair, such as in the last days of my late wife, he lent his shoulders as a family elder and confronted me. I recall his telephone call to me that miracles are known to happen. That is the way of keeping my hopes alive. On a happy occasion when he had to cancel his presence at my son's wedding reception on account of last-minute security issues, he instructed several members of his personal staff to the PMO to represent him and his wife, Gursharan Kaur, who was his greatest source of strength. At the end of my last meeting with him a little before Diwali in October last year, when I took leave of him, he patted me on my shoulder with a smile on his lips, and as he was bidding me goodbye with his last blessings. This moment is etched in my consciousness, as are several other memories of the benevolence and grace that have given me as a perpetual purpose in life the pursuit of human dignity in all its manifestations. Thank you, Dr. Sahib, and thank you, Sonia ji, for giving us an outstanding Prime Minister who elevated himself above his exalted office. Farewell, sir. Rest assured that history is kinder to you. Your place is assured in its annals and pantheon of the great. For the susceptics, let me invoke the felicity of the celebrated poet, Mr. Taqi Mir, as a tribute to our beloved Dr. Sahib. This, do not make the mistake of treating us an unknowing or ordinary, for the sky is vendor of the ears, only them from the cloak of dust human beings emerge. The writer is a former Union Minister of Law and Justice. A driver crashed his pickup truck into a crowd celebrating New Year's Day in New Orleans, French Quarter, and opened fire, killing 10 people and injuring more than 35 in an early morning attack the FBI said was a potential act of terrorism. The suspect, described by one city's leader as being in full military gear, died after a shootout with police, law enforcement officials said. This man was trying to run over as many people as he could, Police Chief Annie said at a televised press conference on Wednesday. He was hell bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did. The incident occurred at 3 a.m. at the intersection of Canal and Bourbon Streets, a historic tourist destination in the city's French Quarter known for attracting large crowds with its music and bars. The cop said the driver, who swerved around barricades, fired at police and struck 2 police officers into the vehicle after it crashed. The officers were in stable condition, she added. The FBI identified the driver, a 42-year-old US citizen from The population of Gaza has fallen 6% since the war with Israel began nearly 15 months ago, as about 1 million Palestinians left the enclave while more than 55,000 are presumed dead. According to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, around 45,000 Palestinians, more than half of them women and children, have been killed since the war began, but another 11,000 are missing, the Bureau said, citing members from the Palestinian Health Ministry. As such, the population of Gaza has declined by about 1,60,000 during the course of the war to 2.1 million, with more than a million or 47% of the total children under the age of 18, the PCBS said. It added that the Israel has raised a brutal aggression against Gaza, targeting all kinds of life there, humans, buildings and vital infrastructure. Entire families were erased from the civil register. There are catastrophic human and material losses. Israel Foreign Ministry said the PCBS data was fabricated, inflated and manipulated in order to vilify Israel. Israel has faced accusations of genocide in Gaza due to the scale of destruction. Israel has repeatedly rejected accusations of genocide, saying it abides by the international law and has the right to defend itself after the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023 killed 1,200 Israelis. The PCBS said some 22% of Gaza's population currently faces catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity, according to the criteria of the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, a global monitor. Bangladesh Chief Election Commissioner Amam Nasir has said that ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's Awami League may participate in election unless the government or the judiciary issues a ban against the party. The Chief Election Commissioner said that this during a meeting with election officials at the Chittagong Circuit House on Monday, the Dhaka Tribune newspaper reported. Nasiruddin also assured that the Election Commission runs with complete independence and faces no external pressure. We are committed to taking all necessary steps to ensure a fair and transparent election, he added. The CEC also acknowledged the issue of fake voters in previous election and attributed a decline in voter registration to mistrust in the voting process. He announced plans to initiate a voter list update soon to address these concerns. The voter list will be updated within the next 6 months. This time elections will not follow previous patterns. Since August 5, there has been significant progress in fostering national consequence on electoral matters, he added. During the meeting, the CEC provided details, guidelines on voter list updates and preparations for the upcoming national election. The growth in non-food credit of scheduled commercial banks slowed to 11% in November 24 on an year-on-year basis compared to 16.5% the Reserve Bank of India data showed. The industry segment witnessed a loan growth of 8.1% in November 24 compared to 5.5% in the year ago period. Within industry, though loans to macro and small segments saw moderation, it continued to see a double-digit growth at 10% in November 24. Advances to medium industry rose by 20% in the November 24 as against 12% a year ago, the RBI data showed. In November 24, the overall bank credit, which consists of food and non-food credit, grew to by 11.8% as against of 16.3% in the corresponding period of the previous year. The food credit grew by 22%. The non-food credit of banks stood at rupees 170 lakh crore in November 24 compared to rupees 152 lakh crore last year. The data of sectoral deployment of bank credit for November 24 showed. These figures exclude the impact of merge of HDFC Limited with HDFC Bank, which came into effect from July 1, 2023. Much of Sydney's garbage after the rivalry on New Year's Eve won't be picked up by the City Council on New Year's Day. The collection of bins outside homes is postponed by a day. The party road debris is swept up, but everything else needs to wait, a somewhat apt metaphor for where India find themselves in the series. Much of the deep cleansing has to wait, though recalls on retirements have to wait. Bold moves on handling transition have to wait. They just have to pick up the debris in the here and now and front up the last test. They can still return home victorious with a Border Gavaskar trophy if they win the Sydney. A 2-2 result will help them retain the trophy as they are the current holders. Australia find themselves in the city with a sense of strangeness as far as the last test in a home series against India is concerned. In the 2018 series against India, they had lost the penultimate test at Melbourne and were trailing by 1-2 when they hobbled to Sydney, where Cheteshwar Pujara pulped them further. In 2021, they could not separate R. Ashwin suffering from a back injury and Hanma Vihari hobbling with a leg injury as India drew that penultimate test and they won the final and won at the Gabba. This time Australia are ahead of 2-1 as they enter the final test. Unsurprisingly, the weather is a topic of discussion in Sydney. Rains are expected on day 4 and day 5, and if the forecast holds up, a draw can loom rather quickly. Hence, that final frantic session in Melbourne has turned even more significant. Australia were more desperate for a win. India were not the stubborn in taking out a draw, and could have allowed them to hold one hand on the Border Gavaskar trophy.